Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and coming up on today's program, the latest Texans news and rumors ahead of the Hall of Fame game against the Chicago Bears. The Bears going on tomorrow, and a reminder that we will be live here on the channel an hour before kick, so around 6 p.m. Central Time, we will be live here on the channel. We'll be doing play-by-play, breaking down everything that you need to know around the Texans and Bears game tomorrow. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, and let me know if you're going to join me in the comment section. Type me if you're going to join me for the party tomorrow. I have some giveaways. We're going to be giving away an Andre Johnson jersey tomorrow. My beautiful wife made a Texans Yeti cup that we're going to be raffling off tomorrow as well. So if you want to have some fun, kick it with the best Texans community here on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for our live watch party tomorrow. And got some news. Not really some news, but some, fun stuff for tomorrow. The Texans will be unveiling their white jerseys tomorrow for the very first time. The brand new jersey set is set to debut this year, and the first one we'll get to see in live action are these beautiful whites. And I've said it before, I think the whites might be the best jerseys that the Texans have right now. I love, the secondary H-Town ones. The battle red obviously are dope. I don't know, the whites are clean to me. If they had a white helmet and went all white, disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. But we'll be able to see the all whites in action tomorrow. Somebody we're not going to see in action tomorrow, Charlie Heck. Injured at practice again. Plantar fasciitis in his foot. Should be out at least a couple weeks. And I just feel so bad for the man because, honestly, Charlie Heck, he's been with the Texans for a couple of years, and he just seems to always find himself on the injury list. So as I look at this Texans depth chart now, he wasn't going to start, obviously, but he is fighting for one of those last roster spots on the team for offensive linemen. And now that he's injured for multiple weeks, he was injured last year, he's been injured his entire career, it seems like. I just don't think the Texans end up keeping him on that final 53 man, especially with the amount of injury concerns they had last year around the offensive line. I don't think they take that risk going into 2024. I think the last offensive lineman that makes the 53-man roster could be David Sharp, somebody who they signed in free agency this offseason, a veteran, has played with multiple teams. I believe he's played with the Panthers before, has had some experience playing in the NFL. I think he will be that last lineman that makes the final 53-man roster. And just a reminder, whenever that date is, it's August 27th, by the way, for final roster cutdown day, we will be breaking down every single selection that the Texans make on that final 53-man roster. Another reason why you got to hit that subscribe button. But another reason why we should probably be really focused in on tomorrow's Hall of Fame game because, we won't see the starters. But those guys are going to definitely make the team. Those guys are locks to make the roster. The guys that we're going to be watching tomorrow, those are the guys that are battling to make this squad. So this game, the preseason games coming up, could really determine who those last guys who make the roster are on this team. Now, next up, will the Texans make a move this week? Well, I was reading a Bleacher Report article, and they were saying, the biggest weaknesses for every single team. And first off, here's the list that Bleacher Report put out for the Texans, and I completely disagree with their rankings. Number one, they said cornerback. I might be drinking the Kool-Aid. I might be drinking the hype juice way too much, but I don't think cornerback is the biggest need for the Houston Texans. I mean, Kamari Lassiter has looked so good during training camp, and then obviously you have Stingley on the other side. I really think this cornerback group is going to be fantastic, and especially with the Texans pass rush, they're going to be looking really good this year. The other biggest weaknesses they had for the Texans, interior defensive line, which I agree with. That is a weakness for the Texans, a need that they're going to need to address. Interior offensive line, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of question marks around the interior of the offensive line. But if those guys step up, I don't think that's a big weakness on this team. And then running back. They did give us one free agent that the Texans should sign from their biggest weaknesses. I'll tell you who that free agent is in just a moment, but I couldn't do today's show if it wasn't for our amazing sponsor, and that is Game Time. Go check them out today. Game Time is my go-to ticketing app, and Texas football is here. So make sure you never miss an opportunity to watch this team in person with our sponsor, Game Time. With Game Time, you can expect last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and more. All in pricing. You can toggle this feature, and it shows the total upfront price with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat view. You can see your seats before you even buy the ticket. The panoramic view from your seat is in the app before you even buy it. And then the lowest price guaranteed on Game Time. If you find the same ticket for the same show event in the same row, in the same section, and it's less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So the free agent that Bleacher Report suggested the Texans sign is Mike Purcell. And it makes sense because obviously this comes off the heels of the DeMeco Ryans suspension for the first 6 games of the Texans regular season. The Texans obviously could look to sign somebody in free agency to fill a void there. Could it be Mike Purcell? I mean, I'm not sure if that's the best option for the Houston Texans. I mean, whenever we really look at this Texans defensive line depth chart and we look at where Mike Purcell would fit in, I mean, 6'3", 328 pounds last year, 25 tackles, has just been a spot starter in the league. Signing a guy like Purcell, I don't think is the move because he'd just be a depth piece. I mean, Purcell wouldn't be a guy that you sign to start right away. He'd be a guy that you sign because you don't really trust the depth at the defensive tackle anymore, and he'd be a rotational piece for this team. And I think the Texans actually feel really good about Mario Edwards and this defensive line where they're at right now. I don't think they actually go out and sign a defensive lineman in free agency. And if they do, it might be a rotational guy like Purcell who doesn't even have a lock to make this roster. Whenever we look at the Texans defensive line depth chart, obviously DeMeco Ryans suspended for the first 6 games of the season. But right behind him, Mario Edwards Jr. He could be the missing link for this Texans defensive line and really step in. He's looked really good during training camp so far. So with him, you also have Khalil Davis, Tim Settle, who they signed in free agency, and Harris, who was the late round pick out of Auburn. I think this Texans coaching staff might feel secure where the defensive line is right now, unless maybe a guy like J.J. Watt calls them up and says he wants to play. What say you, though? Will the Texans sign a defensive lineman this week? Let me know down in the comment section. Yes or no, your thoughts on this. Do you think they're going to go out and sign somebody to replace DeMeco Ryans for those first 6 games? I want to hear what you have to say down below. Next up, I saw this kind of circulating around social media, and it's been a hot topic among a lot of NFL teams so far of, should you trade for Matthew Judon? I saw another Texans content creator make a video and make an article around whether the Texans should trade for Matthew Judon, and I thought it was kind of interesting. You know, last year was injured, 13 tackles, 4 sacks for Judon with the New England Patriots, and when you look at his body of work, he's been a pretty good pass rusher the past 2 years in 2022 and 2021, 12.5 and 15.5 sacks those 2 seasons, and he's definitely a really good, underrated edge rusher, outside linebacker for a lot of teams. Now, when it comes to the Texans, there's a 1% chance, and I'm probably being generous saying it's a 1% chance this trade happens, and the only reason I'm giving it a slight inclination is because Nick Caserio has those ties to the New England Patriots, obviously his former place of employment. But I went to thinking, you know, if he was traded to the Texans, you know how crazy their NASCAR package could be? Their 3rd and long, their get after the quarterback package. You could have a defensive line once DeMeco Ryans is back with Matthew Judon, Danielle Hunter, DeMeco Ryans, and Will Anderson Jr. Quarterbacks would be shitting themselves if they saw these 4 guys line up on the other side on 3rd and long. Now, like I said, 1% chance, I don't think it happens. And the biggest problem actually isn't going to be really the trade value and like what you're giving up in terms of draft capital. The biggest problem is going to be with the money with Matthew Judon, because the reason why there's such a tiff between him and the New England Patriots right now and why he got into a big argument with Jerod Mayo in training camp the other day is his contract. He's seeing a lot of guys in the New England Patriots get contract extensions, and he feels like the odd man out. So if the Texans traded for him, it wouldn't be the draft capital that you're really worried about. It'd be you're trading for a guy who wants a new contract now. So that's another can of worms that you have to open up if you do end up trading for Matthew Judon, because he wants a contract extension. You're going to have to pay this guy coming off an injured season when you already have really good edge rushers. That's why, in totality, I don't think the Texans end up making the move. It's an interesting idea. It's a fun idea, but in reality, I don't think it happens. Like I said, 1% chance that happens with the Houston Texans this year. Last thing I got to get to, and I need to get to this before I go. We need to show the GOAT some love. Andre Johnson inducting into the Hall of Fame, the Texans' first Hall of Fame player in franchise history. And spam 80 down below if you love you some Andre Johnson, because growing up, he was the man. He was the Houston Texans franchise. Whenever anybody said anything around the Houston Texans, the first words out of their mouth were Andre Johnson, and for good reason. Let's look at his career stats for the GOAT right here. 7 Pro Bowls, over 1,000 receptions, over 14,000 receiving yards, 70 touchdowns, and 7 1,000-yard seasons for Mr. Andre Johnson, Mr. H-Town himself. And one of the best stats that I saw, and one of the most, really eye-popping stats for Andre Johnson, he's one of 3 players to lead the NFL in receiving in back-to-back seasons. Who are the other 2 guys, you ask? Calvin Johnson and Jerry Rice. Those were the other 2 receivers to do that feat. So if you're in that territory, if you're with those guys, obviously you are one of the best receivers to ever do it. And I just want to say thank you to Andre Johnson. Everything he's done for this franchise, everything he's done for the city of Houston, he put the Texans on the map. And Texans fans everywhere, should be undoubtedly grateful for him playing with this franchise as long as he did, and the blood, sweat, and tears that he really poured out for this team. Thank you, Andre Johnson. Once again, go spam those 80s down in the comment section for the GOAT himself. And reminder, we'll be live tomorrow for all the festivities. Andre Johnson will be in attendance. There'll be a game as well between the Texans and the Bears, the Hall of Fame game. We will be live starting at 6 p.m. Central Time, so don't miss out. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us for all the action tomorrow. It's going to be a fun time. Giveaways, live analysis, play-by-play by yours truly. So it'll be a great time. Make sure you hit that sub button and join us tomorrow.